Welcome into another episode of the Laser Bros podcast. We are your hosts, Logan and Luke Lazarchik. Uh, week we took a week off. Luke was covering Big 12 tournament last week, so for this week's episodes, we will actually have two episodes for you guys. The first one we'll be talking about NFL free agency, and our second one will be talking about March Madness, which starts tomorrow. So I'm very excited to start talking about that.
hmm
Luke, I know you had a pretty busy day today. That's why we're recording later in the day. How have you been today, and how's your week been so far?
Game back. It's final 2 months of school life. So just wrapping everything up, hitting that what's the phrase? The senior, whatever it is. Yeah, I'm kind of ready. Not have to go to class and all that. Busy getting stuff
Senioritis or
for a
something like that,
newspaper.
or
Senioritis, is that what it's called? I don't
it's
remember.
something along those lines.
I think it is. But yeah, I'm quite ready for all that. I mean, good thing for me. K-State women's basketball is still going, and they're hosting their first and second rounds in Bramlage Coliseum here in Manhattan. So that's kind of awesome.
Yeah, I know the men's team, their season kind of flamed out. I know they lost last night in the
Yeah,
NIT tournament. So hopefully the women's team can pick up the slack and potentially make a run the women's
no,
tournament.
they should be able to. Some interesting matchups for them possibly
Mm-hmm.
facing Iowa. If they were to face Iowa in the Sweet 16 and then LSU in the Elite Eight, I mean, first off you'd
Well,
have to be going nuts.
that's a tough two teams to
They
potentially
match up
beat.
well against Iowa. Beaten Iowa 2 out of the last 3 times past 2 years.
Well, as we mentioned earlier, we will be talking about NFL free agency, which started last week, and we'll start with winners and losers. That will be the main topic of our first episode today. So let's start off with the winners. And Luke, I'll let you kick it off with your first winner.
My first winner, pretty simple. The Houston Texans. You got Daniil Hunter, great signing, one of the best pass rushers in the NFL. I know that they lost Jonathan Greenyard. Greenyard,
Greener.
Greenard firm, but Daniil Hunter's an upgrade for about everybody, and it's an expensive deal, and most of it's guaranteed. But that's great.
Basically
Get
all of
another,
it's game.
yeah, it's basically fully guaranteed. But he's next to Will Anderson now. You got the vet, the young guy. I think that's great. You get Joe Mixon for like nothing.
First
I
round
mean,
pick.
that's awesome. You lose Singletary, who's good, but yeah, you still have Damon Pierce. Then they made a couple, other smaller signings. Autry, Danico Autry, I believe, re-signed Dalton Schultz, Chris Boyd, Mario Edwards, and then they got pretty good value on that Minnesota trade, moving the 23rd pick and the 232nd pick for the 42nd, 188th, and then
And then
gain
future second.
and then gain Minnesota's second pick next year. So I think that's great value, and they're accumulating assets. Another thing which I think is a win is that they didn't go get a receiver, which I think you were all over. I think the fact that they stay with Tank Dell and Nico Collins, they re-sign Noah Brown too. You roll out with the same weapons, I think you're good. So CJ he's surrounded by a lot of good stuff. They're looking pretty nice. And if you get that defense rolling, I mean, D'Amico Ryans is a defensive head coach. You could you could win the 1 seed theoretically, just because your division isn't as strong and probably schedule may
Well,
be light.
they're playing first place schedule now this year, so
Well,
it's
yeah,
gonna
but
be
the
a much
Chiefs
tough.
get
I
all
think they have actually a pretty tough schedule,
the Chiefs
but
get
it's also
the Chiefs get all the headline games, and so the Chiefs don't really have breaks when you win multiple Super Bowls. But the Texans get a little breaks. I mean, they're looking nice. They're looking nice. They didn't do anything stupid, which I thought was good. Daniel Hunter was a
yeah,
big one, but just a whole bunch of nice moves.
yeah. I think Texans. I think for the most part had a really solid offseason. I think right now they're clearly the front runners in the AFC South, and that's not just because they won it last year, but I think you kind of look at the rest of the teams in that division losing pieces. And we'll talk about a team in that division later on in this episode, but I think Texans arguably have the best quarterback in the division. They have a good head coach. They're gaining some foundational pieces on the defensive side. You're keeping your core offensive players. I think the Texans had a really good offseason. I think they may like one seed may be a little too rich, but I could definitely see them getting 2 or 3. And then
They have a shot.
it depends on how they'll adapt to that schedule. I think because I believe I saw somewhere their schedule's pretty like the opponents they play for next year is pretty tough. But it'll have to.
Mhm.
It depends on, like you said, the breaks and when you get your bye week, who you play before your bye, after your bye, and if you play good teams for a stretch. But yeah, I think Texas for the most part, if you're a Houston fan, you have to be pretty excited about what they did this offseason, and I think they'll probably repeat as AFC South champions next year.
Oh yeah, for sure. They're looking good. I really like that they didn't do anything stupid. That they didn't like go pay someone I mean, they paid Hunter, but I do think that's worth it. They didn't go I think it's good they didn't get a receiver, as I said. Just like Nico Collins and Tank Dell are their guys, and CJ Stroud, and you got Noah Brown. It was a simplistic offseason with one big move, a sneaky Joe Mixon move. Really like it.
My first winner I want to talk about, and I think it's potentially the biggest winner of the offseason,
Mm.
is the Atlanta Falcons. Falcons, for the last how many years now since Matt Ryan's left, I mean, they have not had a quarterback in place to win their division. And I think the addition of Kirk Cousins easily gives them the best quarterback in that division. I think they may have slightly given him too much money, but you get your guy that you want, and you get a
Yeah, it's
quarterback that
fine.
can easily win you a playoff game. Well, get you to at least the playoffs. And then you added Darnell Mooney, which I thought they slightly overpaid for Darnell Mooney, but you get another receiver behind Drake London.
Mm-hmm.
He will be a good number 2. And they even added Rondale Moore from Arizona, which I thought was a pretty sneaky move. I think he could be a very solid number 3 receiver.
Mm-hmm.
And with adding those pieces to Kyle Pitts, Bijan, and Drake London with the offensive line, I think the only hole really remaining on the Falcons roster is just a pass rusher. So I think they did a great job of adding the pieces that they needed during the free agency period.
And aren't they going after Hassan Reddick they're trying to trade for?
Yeah. So
And like
maybe they
that could
get
be
him, and
huge.
then maybe they draft somebody 8th overall, another pass rusher 8th overall. So I think the Falcons are in a very good spot.
No, they're in a good spot. I mean, with Kirk, I love Kirk. I think that was a great signing. I mean, you go pay your man. You should be easily favored for the division. I feel like your only threat is if Baker gets even better, but that's tough to call. And Tampa lost some pieces, so they're looking great. Yeah, I like the Mooney. May have been overpay. Moore was
I mean,
nice.
$13 million a year is, I think it's a slightly overpaid.
I mean,
Like
yeah.
I would like them to get like maybe $10 million a year.
I mean, yeah,
I
it
mean,
is what it is.
they have cap flexibility. The only question I have about Kirk Cousins is I have questions about if he can have that success in big time games, and then of course coming off the Achilles injury at 36. Those are probably the 2 main questions I have. But I think he's still the best quarterback in that division.
Oh yeah, for sure. And I trust in Kirk Cousins and Rondell Moore. You got him for Desmond Ritter. I mean, that's a
Basically not for
banger of a
free.
trade. Oh yeah,
Basically
that's
not
a
for free.
banger
And
of a
Rondale Moore
trade.
hasn't been like I'm not saying he's been a good player at all, but as a number 3 option as a speed guy, I think it's really good.
Oh yeah.
Who's your second winner?
So picking winners was tough. I know they just lost their greatest player in franchise history, but I like the Rams. I like the Rams. They lost Aaron Donald, but they have all these picks still. They got multiple people on the interior to help out. They got Jonah Jackson. They got why am I blanking on the other one?
On the other guard they got?
Yeah. Yeah.
What's his name? Why I'm blanking as well. They paid for 2 guards though. Like they
Yeah. Why am I blanking? I don't know. I
Are you
should
sure?
have had this up. But it's not like on the Kevin Dotson.
Mhm.
They kept Kevin Dotson. So now they got this offensive foundation protecting Stafford more. You got Cup, you have Puka, you re-signed DeMarcus Robinson, who's really good. I think they got Darius Williams back, so that was another nice move. They made a couple small moves on defense, nothing crazy. Got Jimmy Garoppolo as a backup, which I think is a good move. Some may disagree, but I think you get Jimmy Garoppolo in there.
Sure.
And yeah, I like it with See, with this offseason, there just wasn't a ton of like teams going out and getting insane players that were like these great deals. So I kind of just like these teams doing good fundamental things and who are prepared for the draft. It can be beneficial in the draft. And I think the Rams are in a great spot there with all their picks. And I think they have a great offseason to build into a potential division winning season.
See, losing Aaron Donald, if
It's
they didn't lose
tough.
Aaron Donald, I'd probably be on your side of that discussion. But losing Aaron Donald, I think, is too big of a hit to that team, especially on the defensive side. He was a
I
leader for
mean,
those young players.
I agree. I agree. It's
I think,
definitely not a plus.
like, so when we talk about like small moves, you're talking about Rams making a lot of small moves that are really good, under the
Hmm.
radar moves. And I think these teams that have a lot of cap space are mostly teams that are either rebuilding or they shed a lot of cap space because they're in that rebuilding stage. And so they go out and throw a bunch of money out. Like we saw the Raiders. I think they majorly overpaid for Christian Wilkins.
It
Like
was a
I
lot of
think he's a good
money.
I think he's a good player, but over 100 million, I'm like, okay. I think it was like 80 something million guaranteed in that contract.
Hmm.
Like these, like Washington's another team that had a lot of money. I think they just threw money around. Really, I didn't really like most of their signs. I was not a huge fan of. Like you said, the Rams. I think they made marginally good moves and didn't overpay for
And
anybody. They really made moves that were found, their interior, their offensive line is now very good. And
oh
you
yes,
stole Joan Jackson from the Lions, which I think that'll be a hit for him. But I think the Rams, you get
the
Stafford, who's
Lions
a
did get Kevin
game.
Zeitler though, so that's good
That's
for
true.
them.
That's true. But the Rams, I think Stafford's at this point he's just a pocket quarterback. So getting that interior offensive line actually may be more important than getting the offensive tackles, and especially in that system with Sean McVay.
And they have the Rams have Kobe Turner and Brian Young who got 8 and 9 sacks, so 17 sacks between them as rookies. So they have people up front. It's not going to be Aaron Donald, duh, duh, but they got people up there who could still contribute. Got a little to
And they also have
secondary.
11 draft picks, I believe.
No,
Sorry
yeah,
to cut
that's
you off.
huge. I like that. I like teams having draft picks, and the Rams drafted pretty well last year. Clearly, two people who combined for 17 sacks, the best rookie receiver season ever. None of those are in the first round. Now they have a first round pick, and they didn't do anything stupid. They didn't do anything stupid,
and
and I like
and
it.
I believe the Rams had double digit picks last year, and I may be wrong on that, but I believe they had a lot of draft picks as well in last year's draft. So I think they're definitely a candidate to be aggressive in this draft. I could definitely see him train up into the first round and grabbing one of these star
Hmm.
pass rushers or possibly possibly another receiver. But I don't know. I don't know. I think you can get a good receiver where you are, but I
I
think
don't
defensively, I think they go
think
edge rusher.
you're not spending your first round pick on receiver. If you
No,
just
I think they end up
drafted
going edge rusher. I think they end up
Well, yeah,
going
but
edge rusher
if you
for
just
sure.
draft someone in the 5th round and he's already a top 15 receiver, why go draft someone in the first round? I don't know. I wouldn't do that. You got
No, I'm
Kyron
not saying
back
I would do it,
there.
but I'm saying I can see
I'd say
them.
build up the defense early.
Yeah,
Maybe go
I
for
think they go
another
get a pass
receiver.
rusher.
And you have Demarcus Robinson, who was really good at the end of the year. So they're in a nice spot.
Mhm. My second team and another team I think that's in a really good spot, not just for now but for the future, the Green Bay Packers. Um, Josh Jacobs was, I think it's the most surprising signing in free agency, and maybe there's another one out there that you can think of that's more surprising, but I don't think there's no rumors or connections of Josh Jacobs at Packers. I don't think it was on anybody's radar,
I,
but they upgraded at the running back position.
hmm
What are you gonna say, something?
No, I was going to say, I think there's one more, but I'll talk about that in my
Okay,
next.
okay. Upgrade the running back position. You get younger at the
I,
running back position. I think you
I don't know.
upgrade. He's younger.
Aaron
Aaron Jones
Jones
has
is
been
playing
dealing with
so well, but
injuries.
I get that,
He
but he's
deals with
playing
injuries
so
too.
well.
He's dealing with way too many injuries. I mean, he was injury riddled last year. He had a
Yeah, but if you're
hamstring for
talking,
about.
okay, you can in that sense. I mean, I was honestly not a huge fan of the lose Aaron Jones, get Josh Jacobs, personally. I understand he gets hurt, but he was playing so well to end the year, and I think he's better than Josh Jacobs, and he's been with the team, and I don't know that. And now he's with Minnesota, who had a sneaky good offseason. If you take away the Kirk Cousins thing, they figure out their quarterback. I don't know. I don't know.
But I also like that they got Xavier McKinney, and they were able to get these
That's
two
good.
players because they moved off of David Bakhtiari and Aaron Jones, freeing up about $20 million in cap space. So I think the Packers continue to add really young talent, really good talent around Jordan Love. And Jordan Love right now is still on a pretty cheap contract. They'll have to give an extension here pretty soon. But I think the NFC North, I think it's potentially going to be the second best division of football next year. And I
Yep.
really couldn't tell you who I think is going to win the division. Like I don't think Minnesota wins it because Sam Darnold. I still don't know, and then we'll have to see what they do at quarterback. But I could definitely see like Chicago. I think is probably, and if you had to rank the three teams right now, I'd put Chicago at 3 because Caleb Williams is a rookie quarterback. But I could definitely see them challenging for the division. I mean, they're a 7-win team last year, but I think it would be between Packers and Lions
I
at this
mean,
point.
for me, it's the Lions, and I'm higher on the Vikings than you are, and I'm probably slightly lower in Chicago. I like what Chicago has, but rookie and stuff. I think they're set up well, but I'm not picking them to win the division. The Vikings, if you look at it, I mean, obviously the Packers should still be good, but you need to make sure Jordan doesn't regress. The Lions are going to be good. But the Vikings made a lot of defensive signings, and then they've set themselves up to trade up for a quarterback. We'll see what happens with that. I mean, that's very weird right now with the J.J. McCarthy stuff. It's
I
very
mean, they definitely
weird.
traded for that number 23 pick to trade up. I mean, I think that's
No, yeah,
the
but I
overall
wonder if they're trying to
consensus.
sneak into the top 3 or if Washington or the Patriots. I don't
See,
know.
the thing is, I think trading up to the top 4 for McCarthy just seems like if it's so tough because you need one of those 3 teams not to be interested in the guy that they have, which I think the most likely team to not be interested in a quarterback if they don't get there. Because I think Patriots are the team that the first 2 guys can go, and those are 2 guys that they prefer or a third guy that's available. So that's the only pick I really see being traded back
Yeah, I
out
still
of those
feel
3.
like Drake May and Jaden Daniels. I like them both, but over the past few days, and it's still off topic. I really just like it should be Drake May in my opinion. I'm like it should be. He had nothing, and he was really good the year before when he had stuff. And everyone's talking about how Malik Neighbors is better than Marvin Harrison Jr. and Brian Thomas is like kind of the new wide receiver 4, and like Drake May had 9 games at Tez Walker. So that's my opinion on that. But I mean, people are talking about if Drake May slips. Oh, if Drake May were to go to the Vikings, Logan, oh my
Well, yeah,
gosh.
no, that's
I'd
what I'm
be
saying.
so high on the Vikings.
Like
I'd Logan,
so
I'd be
you would
so high.
let me so you would like the Vikings more with oh wait let me you would like the Vikings with Drake May more than Chicago with Caleb? Is that what you do? Is that
Yes,
what that's where
because
you'd stand?
I first off, I think a lot of it head coach. I love Kevin O'Connell. He's a great coach. You have Jefferson, Addison, Hawkinson, Aaron Jones was such a good. I almost wanted to put Vikings as a winner, but you lose a top 12 quarterback, you just can't. They made a lot of nice defensive signings. Jonathan Greenyard, who we mentioned earlier, Brian Flores another year, and they were better on defense. You kept Harrison Smith. Dude, I like the Vikings a lot. If Sam, even no matter who they get as a rookie, if Sam Darnold is just like proves his contract to be a good contract, the 1 year 10 mil, they could be, they can make the
But what
playoffs.
has he done to validate any or like that he to give any
So
confidence in?
I think it's the fact that Kyle Shanahan liked him clearly. He went and got
Okay.
him. He was the backup. He beat out Trey Lance, even though that honestly is not too hard to do. And now Kevin O'Connell, you're sort of trusting that the talent's there, and 2 of the smarter, younger football offensive minds have gone out and got him. And that sort of just makes you think. It's like when the Rams got Stafford. This is a lot of what Colin Cowherd said, but I agreed with it. I thought of it. I thought some of these things before he said it, but then he worded it like perfectly on a show. I think 2 days ago. Stafford, you just with McVay and Stafford, you trust these young head coaches. 10 mil, and he has a lot with like he has Jefferson, Addison, Hawkinson, Aaron Jones. That's great. I'm really. It's weird because I like Kirk Cousins. If Kirk Cousins would have stayed and they could have somehow made the defensive signings, I picked them to win the division. But
I don't think it happens though.
no, yeah, exactly. You couldn't do that.
So now let's shift over to the losers side. Who's your first loser from the free agency period?
My first loser is the Jaguars. I wasn't a fan. Like they got Eric Armstead for pretty good amount of money.
Was it 17 million a year?
If
Was that
I
what
think
was it
it's
even?
3 years, 51, and
Yeah.
and they lose Calvin Ridley and lose that third round pick. And see, that was the most surprising signing. Calvin Ridley to the Titans.
Did you
The
see
Titans,
Calvin Ridley's press conference at all by chance when he
I
was
did
introduced
not.
to
Oh,
Tennessee?
I saw he said he's a
Like he basically
25-year-old
said
and 29-year-old's body or something.
no, but he basically said he didn't want to be at Tennessee, but that they just gave him a bunch of money. Like he said he wanted to go back to Jacksonville. Like if you're a Titans fan and he's saying I'd rather go to a division rival,
But
but you
everyone
guys pay
knows
me.
it. Everyone knows that. I mean, they offered him a lot of money. He
Okay, but he
missed
doesn't
out on
mean
the
you
whole.
say it.
I know you don't say it. I haven't seen the clip, but
And
he's
then he said like
right.
there's
I
good
mean,
but then he's like there's good teams in the NFL and there's teams trying to win, and I'm on a team that's trying to win. It was just kind of, if I'm a Titans fan, that kind of rubs me off the wrong way, I think. But maybe I'm
I could see
overreacting to
that.
it. But
I mean, I think it's a good signing for the Titans because you got to see if Will Levis has it or not. Ridley and Hopkins,
I
Traylon
mean, I think
Burks
they
is
overpaid
3.
for Weirdly, but yeah.
No, yeah, they may have, but I think in the end game, I don't think that's the main thing. I think the main thing is to see if Will Levis is your starter or not. So I think I'm fine with that. That's honestly the most valuable thing. It's more valuable than overpaying Calvin Ridley. But back to the Jags. I mean, they also lost Darius Williams. They don't have much of a direction. They just don't
I
have
I,
much,
I
and
think I
they're
think they
just
can finish
like.
third in that division next year.
I
I
mean,
think the Colts
yeah.
can finish second.
I mean, and if you don't, because this is the Trevor Lawrence extension, or yeah, it's the extension off season, and I trust in Trevor Lawrence. I think he's going to be pretty dang good. Obviously, there's a chance he does not live up to what we were all proclaiming
I
because
mean, he hasn't
he
lived up
has
to it yet. It's been 3 years
definitely
now.
he's shown he can. He's shown the moments, but he hasn't fully done. I mean, he's had the biggest playoff comeback ever, so you can't forget that.
Yeah, but that's also off one of the worst first half. Like like he put the team in that situation. I think you also have to look at that
Okay, but
lens too.
he came back and won. He came back and won. Look at the positive. Okay, you have a bad first half in your first playoff game. So did Patrick Mahomes. You remember against the Patriots, they come back. He was terrible in the first half. So I'm not holding the
That
first
wasn't his
half.
first playoff game though.
That was the second game, but the first game he didn't do much. Now he's Patrick flipping Mahomes. So that's not really concerned. But the concern is just that they don't have much. They have like no elite talent. They didn't really gain any elite talent. They don't
I
have
mean, the receivers
anyone.
now. Who's Trevor Lawrence throwing? I mean, the thing with Jaguars is you need a receiver. I still think they need offensive linemen.
Did they ever secure Josh Allen on a long-term deal?
I believe they just tagged him.
Yeah, and you don't have Josh Allen secured. That's like him and Lawrence are your two stars. No one else is a star on that team.
And
And
Trayvon
you,
Walker better elevate
I
his play.
mean,
I mean, they took that guy for he was solid last year, but I mean, they took him over Aiden Hutchinson, who's been really good the first 2 years of his
yeah,
career.
that's not how I'm going to judge a player because that's not
No,
his fault. So, but they just don't have much. I don't. I just they didn't get better. They didn't. They
Yeah,
got worse.
Jaguars. I don't know. I just don't see it. If Trevor Lawrence struggles again this year, I don't know. And I know they're 8-3 before he got hurt last year, but I mean, you lose Calvin Ridley. I don't know who you're gonna be
They
throwing the
weren't
ball
an
to.
impressive 8-3. They were very
No, no. And I mean, the way in which they lost games last year, like the Tennessee game to end the season, it's win and you're in, or losing you're out, and they lost. It's like I think Doug Peterson's on the hot seat this year. I think Trevor Lawrence. I think there's a ton of pressure on him, and I don't really have a lot of optimism around the Jaguars entering 2024.
He may have the most pressure of any quarterback. Even though I always think that's kind of a dumb thing because the pressure is just what we and what the media and all that
It
does.
perceives, yeah.
But he has a lot on his plate, and
Mm-hmm.
I don't like his chances this year of living up to it with what he has around him.
Yep, my first loser, the loser of that playoff game that you mentioned, the Los Angeles Chargers. And I'm not the biggest, I don't hate what the Chargers did by getting rid of Keenan Allen and Mike Williams. I think you save a lot of money. I think there's a retooling stage. But now you only have Quentin Johnson and Joshua Palmer as your two receivers. And we already know that Quentin Johnson struggled mightily last year. And Joshua Palmer, I think, is a 3, maybe a low end 2. So Chargers, I think they were able to keep Joey Bosa and Khalil Mack, which are small wins, I think. But
I don't even know if those are wins, honestly. They're old. I don't even think Bosa's that good anymore, in my opinion.
I think it's a slight win because you lost both your receivers. Like if you lost both your receivers and one of those guys, I don't know
I would
what.
have
I mean,
rather gotten rid of. I think I would have moved on from Bosa. I would not have wanted to lose Keenan Allen, even though I know he didn't accept the pay cut, but that's kind of like you just couldn't keep him. That was losing both receivers. I think that's tough,
yeah.
especially
So
after your last first round pick.
because Chargers, I think, are actually like when you look at the draft, they're actually like in a really good spot at 5 because let's say the first 4 picks are quarterbacks. You have Marvin Harrison Jr. Let's say the first 4 picks aren't quarterbacks, and a team trades up to your spot. Let's say a team like Vikings are really aggressive and trades
Yeah.
up to your spot. You get a ton of draft capital. But I think losing those 2 guys is just Chargers are kind of in a window where Justin Herbert needs to prove himself, and taking away his weapons, I think, could be a major blow if they don't get a receiver early on in the draft. Which I'm not necessarily saying that it's either receiver or nothing, but I think the 5th pick, if they keep that pick, is most likely receiver at
I
this
mean,
point.
yeah, I think that if no one trades, you probably have your choice of Odunze or Neighbors, or you can go Brock Bowers. Or if you trade back with Minnesota, you can
I mean, you
probably
still get
get
one of those
Brock
guys. I think
Bowers.
you trade back.
No, yeah, so that's how they would be saved if they could trade back, get 2 firsts from the Vikings, which is what everyone's thinking. But obviously, who knows what can happen. But yeah, they didn't get better. But you have Jim Harbaugh who's new, so you kind of feel better about it.
And then
So a
also Eckler.
winner.
I didn't talk about Eckler. Even though
Uh,
he's on the back. I mean, he's not even that. I don't think he's
I
that
mean, I don't
special
get why
anymore.
you
But
signed Gus Edwards of all people. It's like
I mean, I think they're definitely drafting a running back as well. Like I think you have to draft a running back as well at some
hope.
point in the draft.
I think they need to be their offensive coordinator.
Greg
Why am I
Roman.
Greg Roman.
Greg Roman. I mean, I'm not a huge fan of his either. So
I mean, that's just like I wonder how it'll be interesting to watch what his offense is if he really has something new and it was just kind of Lamar. But then you saw Lamar at least in the regular season. They brought in someone who had a passing game plan and he worked well in it. So I don't know. Yeah, I agree. They're not a winner. They're they're a loser in the offseason.
yep. Your second loser. We're staying within the AFC West.
Yes, we are.
Tell us about your second loser.
My second loser, the Las Vegas Raiders. You know, when they first signed Christian Wilkins, I kind of liked it, even though it was expensive, because I was like, ooh, Christian Wilkins, Max Crosby. Like, I still think that could be really good. I still kind of like that. But then you signed Gardner Minshew for this big money. I'm not the biggest Fields guy, but you could have taken a shot on Fields. You could have. And you still have
That's
Aiden
probably what I would have
O'Connell.
done if I were them.
No, yeah, you're a Fields guy, so you definitely. I'd just be like, dude, a 6th-round pick. I mean, we have Aiden O'Connell, Gardner Minshew, and you overpaid Gardner Minshew. I
Yeah, I
think
think they
it's
had
like,
13th pick. I mean, it's gonna be
yeah,
tough for them to trade up and get one of these guys. Like
you're probably
I don't know.
stuck with Penix or Nix. Maybe you love one of those guys, but it kind of seems like those two are getting like kind of like, oh, that's what you get if you didn't get what you wanted,
Yeah,
and
so
that's
they'd be
really,
forcing that pick too. That could be a forced pick because they feel like they need to get a quarterback.
yeah. I feel like
Yeah.
when you have a receiver like Devonte Adams, and then you have another receiver, Jacoby Myers, who's pretty good. You have a nice rookie tight end. Like you could even got like Sam Darnold and taken a shot, or I don't know. You
I
just
mean,
could have taken.
I think Fields was a bit like for a 6th round pick. I think it's a no brain. Like I think
It's,
it just take the risk. Like if he doesn't pan out, it doesn't pan out. But you're getting a guy who's super athletic and still has that potential, in my opinion. Like I don't understand why they didn't go after Justin Fields.
yeah,
I
and
really don't
then they
understand.
got Alexander Madison, who's just like not that good of a running back.
No.
Very bleh.
Yeah.
It's
I
I like I didn't mind the signing of Christian Wilkins to start, even though they overpaid. Because I was like, you know what, it's fine. You get
because I've
your
never thought Christian Wilkins like the star. Like, and maybe it's because he was with the Dolphins who didn't necessarily have strong defense, but I never viewed Christian Wilkins as this game changing defensive tackle.
no, yeah.
I
I
never
mean,
viewed him that way.
he got paid a little too close to. I think if Chris Jones would have hit the full free agent market, I think they would have given him like the bag. Like I think they would have unloaded just like 33 a year and just said, we're taking him from the Chiefs. We're going to pay him so much. And Chris Jones would have left, and I would have been like, you know what? I can't blame you. So, yeah, I just don't like what they. I thought they could work with the Wilkins signing and then improve. And then you just overpaid Minshew. Just like Minshew wasn't that good with the Colts last year. He was not.
And that was with a really good offensive head coach.
Yes, he was not that good.
Like Pierce,
He choked the
Pierce
division too.
I think he could be a good coach, but I still think there's still questions if he is the right. Like he's a defensive guy. I don't know. I think like the Antonio Pierce hiring. I guess they were kind of forced into that.
Yeah, you kind of were. But you know, I think he'd be good.
I don't know.
I'm very intrigued by him, but I feel like I want Tom Telesco as their new general manager. I felt like these were not Pierce signings; these were Telesco signings.
No, he did this with the Chargers.
I bet Pierce. Players. I bet Pierce said, "I want Christian Wilkins."
Well, yeah, but
I bet the Gardner
doesn't mean you overpay it. You can still
dude. You just don't pay Gardner Minshew that much. Like unless you know like you're taking Knicks or Penix, and you're like, dude, we're just gonna sit here and take them. We know who we love.
Who finishes last in AFC West? Broncos, Raiders. Right now, if you had to choose.
Broncos.
I know, but
Raiders have more. Like they have a culture that's at least really good right now. I do like the fact that they have a top 7 pass rusher, at least top 10. Max Crosby, and you have another very good pass rusher. You have good weapons. So yeah, I take Broncos right now. We obviously got to figure out the quarterback situations.
But, they're back-to-back picks too, so that could be very interesting as well. One team is desperate enough to move up to get their guys, so the other team doesn't get them. So,
that might be fun to watch.
Yeah, but I agree with you. I think the Raiders. I mean, yeah, they overpaid for both those signings, and I don't really see a bright future for the Raiders this year. I think they're at best the third best team in the AFC West.
I still think they should have gone all out for Kirk. Maybe he would have never gone to Vegas. I think it could have been nice.
I think he wants to win playoff games. You're not going to win playoff games in the AFC and AFC West. That's such a tougher road. NFC South.
I know it's a tougher road, but like Devontae and Jacoby and
but like Devontae's like 32. Like you're getting, like if you go to Atlanta, you have all these young weapons, a really good offensive line.
Okay, yeah, but Devontae's better than London, and I get what you're saying. I just think they should have gone for it. I think the Raiders should have gone for it hard.
My second and last loser that we'll talk about, and I think the most annoying franchise in the NFL is the Dallas Cowboys. Jerry Jones said earlier this offseason that the team is going all in 2024, but their best and most notable signing in free agency was Eric Hendricks.
Yeah.
Linebacker. So I think the Cowboys are the same old Cowboys. They're gonna be having good odds to win Super Bowl, get to Super Bowl, and I think they'll, as always, flame out in the playoffs. So I think the Cowboys, I don't know. I don't know what I think the main cause of why they weren't really active is because they have CeeDee Lamb, Micah Parsons, and potentially Dak Prescott's contract extensions on the horizon. And I think Dak Prescott's the main reason why they weren't really active in this free agent window.
Here's my thing. The one thing I liked is that they haven't signed Prescott to an extension. And I think Prescott's a solid quarterback. I mean, I don't think like everyone kind of really trashes him, and I don't think that's warranted.
I mean, he busts his stats against bad teams.
Okay, yes, but he also but he's won games. He's won a lot of regular season games. He's won a couple playoff games. Not a lot of quarterbacks win 2 playoff games. Like they just don't, Logan. Like not a lot of them do. Lamar's won 2, and he's a 2-time MVP. Josh Allen's won probably like 3 or 4. I have to count. And he's the second best quarterback. Burrow's probably won 4. I know Dak's played longer.
Burrow's also been to the Super Bowl.
I know. I'm not saying they're on the same level, but then it's like
I know, but I think
he's one more playoff.
There's also context.
I know there's context. Yeah. Okay. He's one more than Kirk. I really like Kirk. Has Kyler won a playoff game? I don't think so. Russell Wilson hasn't won a playoff game in ages. I mean, he's better than people. People act like he's like the 17th best quarterback. It's like, no, he's like in that 12 range. But I like the fact they didn't sign him because he's going to demand a lot because he's such a big face because he's on the Cowboys. But I think if they move on from him, I think that's probably just one of those where it's right for everybody. Raiders, I know he has a no trade clause. I bet you can't even trade him. I'd like Dak on the Raiders, but that won't happen. But yeah, they didn't sign anyone. They're not going to be much better. They lost Van Der Esch. He retired, which I felt like we all knew was inevitable with his constant neck injuries, which just sucks because he was
What
so
didn't they
good as
cut
a
him
rookie.
before he retired? I'm pretty sure they cut him before
Maybe.
he
I mean,
retired.
they worked that stuff out, or
Yeah, like they cut him and Michael Gallup, and
yeah.
then he retired.
I assume that's like they knew he was going to retire, and they lost Gallup, who's never the same after he tore his ACL. I mean, I still don't
I
hate them as a
Dallas.
team, but yeah, they did nothing. I still don't hate them as a team, but they did nothing.
I mean,
They have
I think
talent.
they desperately need to get a receiver behind CeeDee Lamb. I mean, the offense last year was CeeDee Lamb or nothing. It really was. You
I mean,
have a run
Brandon
game,
Cooks
Tony
is a
Pollard,
solid too.
and not to mention you lost Tony Pollard, which I think we both agree that he's not like a really good running back. But now your running back room is Rico Dottle and Deuce Vaughn.
Is Rico Dottle even a Cowboy right now?
I believe they re-signed him,
Okay.
but
Yeah, and
I
that's
may have
Rico
misread it.
Dottle. They
Yeah,
draft really well, which I think is helpful because they're always good at drafting. You lose Tyron. They lost Tyron Smith too to the Jets.
yeah,
The Jets had an interesting offseason. I really don't know how to categorize that one. High end potential offseason, low floor
yeah.
offseason. One of those. But yeah, the Cowboys. I don't hate them for next year, but yeah, you didn't have a good you've had a bad offseason. It probably started when you didn't fire McCarthy, and it's continued on. But the one thing they're good at is drafting, so they have that for them. See where they go with that.
Yeah. Uh, yeah, I hate talking about the Cowboys. I think it's the same thing every year, and they don't do anything. So it gets kind of annoying.
It's weird because
Let's
I like
now,
their roster. I like their roster just like on paper.
yeah, but now it's gonna be tough for they to pay players. I mean, I like if I were the Cowboys, I'm definitely paying CeeDee Lamb and Micah Parsons, and I'm letting Dak Prescott walk. Like
Yes.
if I don't think you can sign all those three players and still have the like. I don't think they can afford to sign all three players. You
No,
choose two of the three, and I'm easily choosing potentially the best defense player in the league and a top at this point, I'd say probably top 5 receiver in the league, and I may be
no, yeah.
understating it. So, yeah, I if I'm Cowboys, I would prioritize those two players over Dak Prescott.
Agreedmanship.
Let's change our topic a little bit. So we're going to talk about potential players that could still be on the move. Free agency is still not officially over. There's always players still available, but there are also players that could be potentially traded. So L'Jarius Sneed, huge franchise tag. There's been plenty of trade rumors surrounding him. T. Higgins formally requested a trade last week, but nothing's come of that. Brandon Ayuk has surfaced in trade rumors over the last few days, specifically to Pittsburgh. Odell's still out there, even though
They say
Odell
that
at
the
this point.
Dolphins like him.
Yeah, I saw Dolphins. Of course, they're interested in him.
Odell's a number 3 with Miami. I think would be really good. Just he's
We'll
a
see if he's
third
a big
guy.
old.
He's a third
Yeah,
guy, Logan. He's probably
yeah,
playing
but
40% of snaps.
all those three guys I mentioned before Odell, do you see any of them being moved? I mean, they're all seeking contract extensions and have not been given one. Do you?
I think Ayuk. I think there's a lot of noise. The T. Higgins, like the thing is just like how many spots are left for these two receivers?
Patriots,
Cap. Oh yeah, but here's
Pittsburgh.
the thing. Like cap space wise, Ayuk can be traded because this year he's not going to be a lot of money. But Higgins is going to be on the franchise tag, and just like who has the money? And
Well, no, but whoever trades for Higgins will just give an extension, and then like
well, yeah,
yeah,
but then
whoever.
you have to work out that extension like instantly, and that's
These teams, it's only March. I'm sure teams could figure out getting a contract. It's not even the draft yet. I wouldn't overreact to that.
do you know what idea I have for Higgins? Higgins swap with our dynasty boy, Jahan Dotson. Washington would probably have to throw in like a second or third. But I kind of like that.
I don't see that at all.
The Washington, let's say you draft Jane Daniels. Lauren's good. And I kind of like the idea of another big body with Jaden Daniels or Drake May more experienced for a rookie. And then with the Bengals, we know Jahan Dotson. I mean, this is completely my own thought. Jahan Dotson has potential, but it seems like it hasn't quite worked in Washington, but you've seen it at times. Playing alongside Jamar Chase with Joe Burrow, that could kind of unlock him. I like that. And then I like Ayuk to Steelers, hypothetically.
Yeah, I
The
think
Niners
Ayuk Steelers makes a lot of sense.
The Niners grabbing a second first-round pick, I mean, that's just kind of dangerous to think about. Like, they could do so much. I've kind of convinced myself. I'm sorry, going on a second little thought. You know how the Falcons traded up for Julio all those years? I'd say that was completely worth it. With receiver contracts, if you think Neighbors is the best receiver and you can trade up to 5 and it takes 2 first-round picks, but you have like who you think will be a top 5 receiver for 4 years cheap and then a 5th year moderately paid. It's like, why don't people do that anymore? If you love a receiver, like love them. I don't know.
2 first-round picks for receivers. And like especially in a draft like this upcoming draft, the quarterbacks that are going to be taken, the amount of quarterbacks going to be taken, giving up 2 first-round picks would be.
If you're the Niners and you trade Ayuk for like the 20th pick and a little more, and then you trade the 20th pick and the 31st pick to like 7, let's say Neighbors is there at 7. Who's 7? Titans? I don't know. I feel like Titans probably going to grab tackle, but just all hypothetical. And then you have Debo, because Debo's expensive, Kittle's expensive, and then you have 4 years of cheap Malik Neighbors, and you think he's like one of the best receivers in the league. I don't know why teams would do that, especially with how good some of these young receivers have been. Just a little tangent there.
So I think IU goes to Steelers. I think T. Higgins, if he does get traded, is either New England or Jacksonville. I think it's one of those 2 teams that gets him if he gets traded. And Jacksonville, maybe the money, they're already paying Christian Kirk a little bit of money, but I think they need to get a receiver opposite Kirk. So I think
they just don't have much money. They're 12.7.
That's the thing. That's the thing that kind of gives me pause about them potentially landing Higgins. And then what's your thought on Snead? Does he play this 2024 on the tag, or do you think the Chiefs? Because apparently we had Jeff Shadia on the show a couple weeks ago, and he brought up Ladre Snead, his knee. A lot of teams are scared with his knee history and a potential, of that injury, coming up in physicals and all that. That's something that's come up. And then he's also apparently wants to reset the cornerback market. I think those are 2 things that are kind of holding up a potential trade.
Yeah, no one's giving him the most money for a cornerback. That's just not happening. And obviously teams like him. I think that's obvious by the rumors. But obviously I don't think a team loves him. I think that's where we're at with that. I'm very 50-50 on if he'll stay a Chief or not. If he stays a Chief, he's not. I mean,
the thing is,
honestly, everything's up in the air. Everything's up in the air with Legere.
I think the Chiefs are like Brett Veach knows what he's doing, and he knows if Snead just plays next year on tag, he's just going to leave the following year. And I think he wants to get value for him. And I think Snead is he's a good corner, but I think he's definitely elevated by the Chiefs' defensive system. And I think Trey McDuffie, I think he's going to start a corner. Yeah, and I think Trey McDuffie is actually a better corner than Snead. I think Snead's just more versatile, but I think McDuffie over time will become a better cornerback.
No, that's
Snead was a 4th-round pick. I mean, Chiefs have shown that they could draft and develop corners.
Okay,
I mean, they traded up for
draft another corner. If you draft another corner in the 4th round, who's as good as Snead, then god dang. But yeah, I'm very 50-50. I don't know what's going to happen. I'm 50-50 on it. If he gets traded, I think it's on day 1 or day 2 of the draft. We're just sitting there. It's like the A.J. Brown trade. It's like, oh, that's probably more expected. But it's like, oh, Snead got traded finally.
Yeah, because like A.J. Brown trade, we were watching draft. I think we were watching draft. We were like zooming or something, and we saw AJ Brown got traded to the Eagles, and we were both shocked.
No, yeah,
And one
that
of
was
us was slightly ahead of the other one. I think I was slightly ahead of you, so I didn't say anything, but I made a
oh
facial
yeah.
expression. You knew that something was up. But yeah, I think Snead. I mean, we see a lot of players get traded during the draft. I think players that get traded now are just they get traded because a team's being really aggressive. I think a lot of players do end up getting traded on draft night. So I still think Snead gets moved. I still don't think he goes to the price that Chiefs want. I think he'll end up getting moved for a third round pick.
Yeah, it's
And
tough.
I don't know where he goes. I mean, I know that Colts have been rumored.
And Titans
Tennessee's
have been
been rumored.
rumored.
But Titans have spent. I mean, they spent a lot of money on Calvin Ridley. I think Colts probably make the most sense if
Titans
he's
still have
moved.
money. I think Titans, according to Over the Cap, they are third in money with 46 mil because they cleared a lot of
Yeah.
it.
So yeah, maybe they still make a run at him. But yeah, I don't think Snead is a Chief next year. I don't see the Chiefs willing to take the risk of losing him next season for like a third round comp pick when they get a third round or second round pick this year. And maybe second round's a stretch, but I definitely think they get a third round pick this year if traded.
Yeah, you better get a third or you don't trade them.
Mm-hmm. Anything else you want to add before we end this episode and then go into our next episode talking about March Madness?
I don't know. I think the Drake May Jane Daniels thing. I think Drake May's getting a lot of hate, and I like Jane Daniels. I don't know. This is like Drake May was so good as a sophomore, and he lost like everybody. And his O line sucked last year, and he only had Tez Walker for 9 games. Meanwhile, Jaden Daniels has 2 of the best receiver prospects, and I don't know, and is older. And I just really like Drake May, and I think Washington's still going to take Drake May, and everyone's going to be like, "What?" And it's going to be like CJ Stroud to Texans last year.
Yeah, I don't know. Like for me, I see one of these top 3 teams moving or trading their pick, and I think Patriots prefer Jane Daniels over Drake May. So I think if Drake May's at 3, I think Patriots trade him or trade that pick.
I mean, each time you say that, it's like you don't know what they prefer. Obviously, I'm making my own assumption on what Washington prefers, but Jane Daniels also is like, and I like Jane Daniels, so I kind of hate that I'm kind of bashing him a little bit. But it's like, who do you think's more likely to get hurt for 3 times next year? Drake May, who's sturdy, or Jane Daniels, who's very thin? And I don't know.
I brought up Jane Daniels' frame before, and you've pushed back on that.
I have pushed back on it, but when you're just talking about, I think in general he's okay. But when you're talking about May versus Daniels, I think you got to get a little ticky tacky here because it's the second pick of the draft, and I just don't get how Drake May is getting so hated. It doesn't make sense. And I was higher on Jane Daniels than you
Well, when I
were.
watched Drake May last year, I don't think he was. I know you say he lost the weapons, but if you're that good of a quarterback and you're potentially top 2 pick, top 3 pick, you elite. I mean, there's games last year. I'm like, this guy is not playing. Like, there's a stretch.
Okay, but when has it ever been about just winning?
Well, I'm not saying just win. I'm just saying just complete passes. He struggled with accuracy.
Josh Allen was.
Okay, Josh Allen also went to. Well, yeah, but he also was very raw.
Drake May has.
He went to
Drake May has a
school.
lot. Look at Drake May's sophomore year when he was really good. When he had weapons, he had nothing last year. He has highlights of just drops, great throws on drops. I don't know. I remember it was like, would it be Drake May or Caleb? And it was really like it could be one of those like Caleb's in the lead, but May could take it. I think it's weird. I think it's really weird. I think he's going to be so good. And then, yeah, as I said, whoever goes to Minnesota has the best support staff, in my opinion. If you put Drake May on Minnesota, oh my gosh, he'd be so good. He'd be so good.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm kind of 50-50 on that. But is there anything else you want to add before?
Nah, that's my thing right now. That's my. Okay. I've been watching Drake May highlights lately.
Okay. Well, with that, we'll end this episode. Thanks to everybody who tunes into the show. We will have a second episode up here shortly, so we'll get started on that one. But make sure to subscribe to the video. or subscribe to the channel, like the video, and also follow our Spotify page, which we have a link to on our YouTube page. But until then, we'll see you guys here shortly with some March Madness stuff.
See ya.